Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Running Tales podcast, brought to you by me, Craig Lewis. Now, this is where every other Tuesday evening in the UK, around about 5 o'clock UK time, we broadcast the extraordinary stories of everyday runners. And we broadcast it live across the Run Try Bike Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube network. And then they'll go on all our Running Tales channels later as well. So, hello to you all, wherever you're watching this. And if you are listening on the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, where this episode will appear this Thursday, well, I just hope that the weather is better than it is now in the UK at least. Now, as I mentioned there, we're part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network, and there are some brilliant stories across that network. Just this morning, I was listening to Joe Harden chatting to John Swain on Beyond the Finish Line, and they were talking about run commuting. Now, run commuting is not something I've tried myself. It's hard enough to get up in the morning and just get into work without having to run as well. But my word, it sounded really cool. So check that out, and also check out Food Fight Friday as well. Jason Bahamundi and Adam Lee talking about all the strange and weird and wonderful things that they eat while they're out doing trail running. And I can tell you, strange and weird and wonderful doesn't quite cover it. You have to listen to it to believe it, really. Now, anyway, we have a guest for Running Tales today, and it's Jens Peters. And Jens has a quite complicated relationship, but a fascinating relationship with running. His Never Not Thinking About Running Substack newsletter is a really fascinating insight into how the sport can be both a vital support and, quite frankly, a flimsy crutch, which runners can become overly dependent on. So, without further ado, let's bring Jens forward and let's find out all about his Substack newsletter. Good evening, Jens. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Hi, Craig.
Oh, you're really welcome. You're really welcome. Thanks for making the time. So, yeah, I want to talk to you about your Substack newsletter. I think it's fair to say on there that you're, I don't know whether the word's brutally honest or refreshingly honest, but you don't, no subject is off the table for you on there. Was it easy to say, I'm going to read a little line actually,
Okay.
that might explain to people. You talk about how you've been lacing up your running shoes for 9 years, and that your mental health has been the little stone in my shoe that's barely noticeable on the short run, but has caused a painful blister after a long run. And you talk then a lot about mental health issues and all sorts of
Yeah.
other things along the line. Was
Yeah.
it an easy decision to say, I'm going to put myself out there like that?
Yeah, not really, because I think I started back in the days when there were blogs and all these things. I think around 2000 or so, and the main thing I had was talking about myself and how, I don't know, back in the days it was soccer and my love for a certain soccer club, and I got used to talking about myself. During that years, it was like there are many collaborations with other people, and you can um, hear what they have to say. So this time it's a bit different because it's a very personal topic, mental health, and not everyone is so open to talk about it. But I've mental health is a topic for me for a lot of years, so I got used to talking about it, talking to strangers about it, talking to friends, family, and there's not always there the other people are not always open to that topic, so I thought it could be a nice thing to make it more public.
Yeah, well, it's certainly an interesting thing. I find the Substack newsletter fascinating. We should say
Yeah, thanks.
you've mentioned soccer, so that
Yeah,
gives me a chance to say that you're in Germany. I'm in the UK. We obviously have a
yeah.
few American listeners, so for them, we we're using the right phraseology in soccer. But
Yeah,
you'll
of course.
probably get football out of me. But yeah. So anyway, the, as I said, the thoughts behind what you write about there is kind of some of the pressures that you have with running, but also about how running has well, I think you say it's almost like saved you. It's helped you a lot with your mental health, but
Yeah.
an issue as well. Um, can you maybe talk a little bit about that? And I think within that, maybe explain the title for the Substack.
Yeah, it's not that easy to talk about that. It's easy to talk about that, but it's not easy to explain. So the main thing is that where it all started. It started 2018 when I've got a burnout. I think most people are used to the term burnout. For some people, it's kind of an depression, overburden depression. I don't know the exact English phrase for that, but it's if you overburden for things and you get burned out. And these days, you hear that burnout phrase a lot of times, and I think most of the people um, understand it as something that is like you go to work and you're tired and that's it, and you're tired maybe for 2 or 3 months, and then the situation at work gets better. So that's the one thing that burnout is. If you've got a burnout, that's a really for some people it's a um, yeah, it's
Short
harder
term.
for yeah, it's harder for these and
Yeah.
people, and harder for other people. So I've got a burnout in 2018, and one thing people tell you is, or people heard about burnouts, that you have to relax, and it's not easy to relax when you've got a burnout, and that you find other nice things for you, like example, running, and do sports, and clear your head. And at this time, I was already running. Running was an integral part of my life, and because running, how can I explain it? It's like you're already tired, and then people tell you go for a run, and you
Mm.
get more and more tired because running is obviously tiring. So it makes, in these situations, it doesn't make you it doesn't make you feel better because you're getting tired, and that's the main issue with burnouts. So um, so it could be that the situation for a person who've got a burnout gets worse and worse, and that's what it was like for me, because um, it's like you getting big. I had I had weeks where I was very frightened. I had anxiety. I've got panic attacks, and the more tired you are, the more often these situations appear. So when I'm going for a run, then the likeliness of getting a panic attack, is more there. Yeah. So usually running is something which is very beautiful, and for me it was very beautiful, and I get a lot of freedom from running. But in these times where I've got the burnout, it was more the opposite. So that's the thing. And I was always like, okay, today I feel, I'm always feeling into myself. How am I feeling? Am I feeling good? Is it not that good? And that was the idea behind never not thinking about running, because I was always every day thinking about running. Is it today a good day for running, or is it not? Is it too hard for me, for my body, for my mental health, or can I go for a run because I love running? And there was this conflict, and out of this conflict, the newsletter idea developed.
Yeah. And I think it's the whole concept is quite interesting really, because we hear a lot within the running community, I think correctly, about how running's good for mental health. Go out and
Yeah,
run, you'll feel
yeah,
better. And it's true, but if you start, like anything, if it starts to become an obsession in its own right, or if it starts to take over your life, then it's actually got the potential to become a
the
negative
opposite.
thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, and during that time, during this burnout phase, it was absolutely the opposite, and it was always like, "Oh, when can I go for a run again, and is it a good time?" And always thinking about that, and you get more and more crazy. You've got the feeling you get crazy because there's always this circling in your head. Can I go for a run? Because I love it.
Have you managed to find a way to counter that, or is that something you're still working on?
It's still there. I still got that thoughts in my head. It's it's always I'm waking up and it's like, okay, what kind of day it is today? So can I go for a run or am I too tired? Is there the possibility that something's affecting my mental health through that? So that's still there. But my overall state, the burnout is gone. It's better. There are phases where I've got a glimpse of that burnout again. That's always a problem for me. So I have to be careful. But my overall condition is much, much better. And I've got professional help and help from friends and family. So I've got a good background. Everyone is on the same page. So that helps a lot to get through that. And so in most cases, running is not a problem. But there are still times when I'm going for certain goals, like at the beginning of the year, maybe we'll talk about that. I tried to run at UTMB, trained a lot last year, trained for a half marathon, got certain goals, and as at the point where I've got certain goals, I'm following a training plan, then there's always kind of pressure and you're going for every run. And what happens if you left out one training run? Is it good for reaching your goal, or is it better to not do it because maybe your mental health is affected? So there's always this conflict.
Yeah, no, that was something I was looking to come to, because I know you were trying to take on that UTMB event this
Yeah.
year. What was the name of it, just so people know if they were maybe checking that out themselves?
It wasn't France. It was. I forgot the name. It's a French name.
Uh,
Always difficult. Always difficult.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Maybe we'll put it in the
Yeah.
show notes for people. But
It
but yeah,
was
I
a
mean,
it was a UTMB race. You can qualify for the UTMB in Chamonix with
hmm.
results there, and yeah, it was the shortest distance was 34K, 1,400 meters vertical. So a piece of cake for some other people, but for me, it was more than that.
Well, I mean, it doesn't sound a piece of cake to me, for sure. And I
Yeah,
mean, just to put it in context, you're not. I know that there's this block, if you like, on longer distances, but you're not a bad runner. If that's, I mean, nobody's a bad runner, but you know what I mean. Your
there are
times
no
are,
bad runners. If you're
yeah,
a runner, you're a good person.
absolutely, yeah, that's it, that's it. But what I was going to get to really was your times over the shorter distances are far from shabby. You run some good times there, and I think I mean, we're not really about times on this podcast, but I think it's worth
Yeah.
talking about some of those times to give the context of, because people could listen to this and go, oh well, Jens probably can't do it because maybe it's just a long way and he's not that good a runner. But I think if you give some context on that, that might explain some of that might shape the conversation a little bit.
Yeah, I'm a typical short distance runner.
Yeah. So tell people, what's your 5K time? I know I'm going to show you up.
It's a 13, 17 or 13. No,
13. Wow.
no, 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 no.
Jens is actually the Olympic champion.
No, it's a 17:32. That's my PB.
Yeah. So there you go. I mean, there's not many people out there doing 17:32. So you are capable of running fast, which
Yeah,
suggests to
exactly
me
at
that
my age. You have to
you,
tell the people what my age is.
oh, well, that's up to you. I would never ask.
No,
But
no, it's fine.
yeah,
I'm
the
going straight to the 50.
yeah. Oh, it's so fast, and as you say, especially for an age group time. Um, and again, perhaps we'll talk about that, because I think you've made some achievements for your age group as well. But um, what I was going to say was it kind of suggests that being able to run that well over short distance, the block for you is, it's not a physical one. It is that mental block that you're talking about.
Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah.
And is that something you're still working on? You still have goals in that direction?
Yeah, I'm not sure about that. It's always like I've got no problems with doing heavy exercises, especially for the shorter distances. But I think that my body is more used to the short distances and it's easier. So I can do hard interval sessions and all these things. But as soon as I'm doing more long runs, my body has to adapt to that. And I think my physical appearance or my physical abilities are in that section very small because I'm a very what's the difference of heavy? I'm a very light runner, and does one say that? Yeah. So I always have to fuel myself very good during those times where I'm doing a lot of long runs,
Yeah.
and so the load on myself for my body is very big. So mental problems appear much faster as when I'm doing those interval sessions for 5K runs, for example. So when I'm doing, I've got no problems doing a 20 or 30K run during training, but I don't have to, but I'm not, I don't have, I'm not allowed to do it that often.
And by not allowed to do it, is that by yourself, by your mind, that doesn't
Yeah,
allow you to do
it's
it?
by my mind. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I just want to explore, if you're happy to talk about this, one or two of the other things that sort of I read on the newsletter, which kind of shape maybe some of the things that you're battling with now. And again, you don't have to necessarily talk about this, but you've written about it in the newsletter, so hopefully you're happy to.
And no
And
problem of talking to
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
yeah, thank you. And then that's around, the you wrote about it actually in the wake of Kipchoge. Um, Sorry, not Kipchoge. I'm getting the
Yeah.
wrong marathon runner.
I forgot
The
the name too, but
Calvin Kipton.
yeah, exactly.
Calvin
Yeah.
Kipton sadly dying in a car crash, and that
Yeah.
brought back some evocative memories for you around a car crash in your family when you were only 10 years old. And I just sort of wondered, that was your brother ended up being very seriously injured, didn't he? And that's sort of shaped some of your outlook. And without turning this into a therapy session, I wonder how that works for you when it comes to running, both in terms of good and bad things, I suppose.
Yeah, difficult questions. Maybe bit of background for the people who don't read that because
Yeah.
maybe it's important to understand that my brother got a very serious accident with my father, and he was more or less uh, half-sided handicapped. Couldn't use his right arm, his right leg. He had some brain damages, couldn't speak for a while, and it shaped the whole family. And my parents invested a lot of time getting my brother back on his feet. So I was more or less, yeah, a big part of my 10th and 11th year on earth very alone. So that shaped me, and that's an integral part of my therapy because yeah, you learn how to do things on your own and process things on your own. You don't get so much help by other people because at that time I had no help. It was like I was sitting alone at home and waiting for my parents to come home after they went to the hospital and all these things. So that shaped my personality and also my mental health because um, I always did things on my own, and that always leads to overburden yourself because you don't take help from others. So that's a problem. and that manifests in your mind that you can do it only by yourself, and you're limited by your body. You realize that more and more, the more problems you've got. So that leads in the end also to these burnouts phases in my life, and that affects my mental health and also my running. So it's an integral part of my life, and I'm working on that. so yeah.
And in terms of kind of helping yourself to process some of that stuff, does running help, or is when you're out there running well, you can get the bad stuff out of your head and you have a really good run?
Yeah.
Is that just a complete escape, or does that help process stuff?
It's both. I think most of the times running is the most beautiful thing on earth. There's nothing better. It's I always talk to my therapist about running, and it's like she always lightens up because she can see that I'm lightening up, and I'm getting much more positive the way I'm talking. So that's a very good thing. It helps a lot of processing things in my life, at work, family, because as everyone here in the community, you always got problems in your family. You've got problems at work, with yourself, and I think most people know that running is a good way to process things there. But in most times, it's like um, it's the end of the day, and I'm really looking forward to the end of the day because I know I can go for a run. And especially at this time of the year, summer, I love the summer. I can go out and run 4 hours, and then it's the most beautiful thing on earth.
Yeah, and what is it that makes running? You've said it a couple of times, that makes running that beautiful thing. Is it just getting out on their own? Is it on your own? Is it getting out in the countryside? Is it the feeling of pushing yourself to the limit?
uh yeah, different things. It's like pushing your limits, and the thing is that when I'm running, I don't have so many problems as in my normal life. um it's like um I don't know why it is like that. That's also part of therapy, but it's like I can do nearly everything when I'm running. So it's very freeing, and I can go to the top of the mountain. I've got no problems with that, and then have nature around me, and I love exploring my community and all these things. So that's so enlightening, and I love that. So if I'm not in that burnout phases, running always is so great.
Yeah, no, I mean that is 100% a lot of the way that I feel about running at times. I mean, for in the purposes of, I suppose, full disclosure, I had some therapy myself about 18 months back.
Yeah,
I'm on anxiety medication at the moment still, and yeah, all those things you're saying there about running, about getting out there on your own, about both escaping and almost solving your problems. They're
yeah,
so true. And being able to get out in the countryside
yeah,
and find those new places, that's the number one for me. I've
yeah,
got hugely into sort of trail running and getting out and not worrying so much about what time I'm doing because I've just fallen over in the mud for the third time or something. But yeah, that's I can definitely understand completely where
yeah.
you're coming from.
Yeah, I've got no anxiety when I'm running. I don't know why. It's like when I'm driving with the car somewhere with my kids and my wife, it's always like I feel kind of claustrophobic and don't know. Oh, I have to go 2 more hours on a German autobahn. get get kind of panic attacks.
You've got great roads out there. They're much.
Uh, yeah, but there are lots of people driving very fast.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
No speed limits. They're
Yeah,
the only country in Europe with no speed limits on the autobahn. So
yeah.
So I've got anxiety there. But if I'm going for a run, maybe for 30K somewhere, then I've got no anxiety. And I don't know why it is like that, but I'll take it.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And were you mentioned that you were already running before your first big major burnout, but have you
Yeah.
always been running? Were you running at school? Was running something you grew up with?
Yeah, I grew up. Yeah, and that's also kind of family history because my father got a heart attack as I was, I think, 7 or 8, and he also nearly died because of that. And as his rehab, he should go for runs, and I went with him. So I got used to running, but only just for fun. And it was like I was a very small kid, and that was one of the few things I was better as the big kids at school. That was really nice and really rewarding. But I never went to a club or something like that or did competitions. I studied sports in my 20s, so there it was also part of my studies and physical exercise there. But yeah, I really started I think around 2015 again with serious running because I had at that moment one kid and never went to any clubs for sports, and I needed kind of spare time activity, which is very flexible. You can do it every time you want to, and you can do some exercise. And I needed some exercise, do something, and that really helped. So I started running again, and I've yeah, it took me.
And is it something you normally do on your own when you're out there doing those runs, or do you run with a group? What was your sort of preference on that?
Usually I run on my own because I've gotten not so much time with family and work, and then I'm going to run in the evening after all is finished. I'm also at a running club where I do the competitions with, and from time to time to I go to the training there because it's nice to meet people, and yeah, it's always something different, especially doing interval sessions with other people, not on your own somewhere. Um, and I had a good friend in the neighborhood. He was from Norway. The problem was he was only there for 4 years, and then 2 days ago he left again for Norway, going back there. The Norwegian army got a house in our neighborhood, so I've got constantly new people from Norway coming there, and usually they're very sporty and like running. But this time, my friend already told me that he's more into cycling. The next one coming there, so I'm now on my own in the neighborhood.
Oh, you either have to go on your own or
Yeah,
start
yeah,
cycling
yeah.
or triathlon or something.
No, no, I'm not going for cycling or swimming.
um, well, we hope that doesn't upset Jason and run try bike too much. But we'll
I'm
stick to
sorry. I'm
running.
sorry.
This is running tail, so you're all good. Um, it's okay. He's laughing, so we're
Good.
all right. Um, but I was just wondering while you were talking about the running group and all that sort of uh, stuff that you were getting into out there. I mean, I genuinely don't know the answer to this question. I don't know if it's a slightly silly question because I'm guessing like everywhere does it. But I mean, how we've had a real running boom, a jogging boom, almost whatever
Mhm.
in the UK. Has that been the same in Germany, where it's gone from something that was perhaps something that somebody did if they were a little bit elite to anybody turning up of any size and shape and time and fitness and so on?
Yeah. I think in Germany it was like in the 80s that there was kind of boom, and there were they founded a lot of running clubs, the
Yeah.
the the old school clubs. And I think now for 2 or 3 years there's a boom of running crews, they call themselves. It's not really a club. It's more like a gathering of people coming together, and it's it feels for me, we've got that here too. It feels more like a party,
Yeah.
but here in Münster they are very competitive, and yeah, they're a good addition to the conventional clubs. Yeah, and it's good that the running community gets other facets. I always like that. So I think that these crews are more for the younger people. It sounds like I'm a very old 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 person. Yeah, but I like the traditional running clubs. We've
Yeah.
got a trainer there. They at the crew they've got also a trainer, very good runner here from the region, from the area. But I like the concept of the old running club.
Yeah, and then the events there as well. Is there lots of running events going on? And again, here in the UK, we had we had a kind of a peak, a pre-COVID peak, and then after the
Yeah,
pandemic, there was kind of like nobody went back in, even though loads of people went running during COVID because that's all they could do. Not many people kind of went back to do the races until almost like the last 6 months. It seems to have picked up again. I don't
yeah.
know if that's a serious.
It needed some time. It needed some time
Yeah,
to get back or get used to organizing competitions. But I think it's more or less the same as before. There were some competitions dying because there were not enough people helping there. That's always the thing here. I don't know if it's also a problem in Great Britain, but it always depends who organizes these competitions. If it's a bigger club, then usually it's no problem that it still exists.
yeah,
But there are a lot of small villages here in the area. There were some competitions dying, which is very sad because they had a lot of character and were really nice and was gathering for the people there and from here and was really nice. But there were not enough people helping, so these competitions died.
yeah. And then the 5Ks you do, are they quite competitive? Do you go into them with a? I mean, with the times you're running, are you going in with a competitive mindset of even looking to perhaps win those races?
No, no, no. There's no chance of winning. It's always a chance of winning it in my age group. That's usually not that big problem. Um, but there are lots of good people here, good runners. For
Yeah,
example, at this weekend there was a big race, a 5K and a 10K here in the city of Münster, and I think the winner of the 10K got a 28 something, so
oh
which
wow.
is really fast, and the 5K was around um, a low 16, I think. So no chance of winning, no chance of winning. But if you go to the smaller races, there's always a chance to go for a podium.
Mm.
Yeah, but yeah, and I'm competitive. I really like racing. I really like it. But in most cases, it's the goal is to do a fun race, a good race, maybe going for PB if that's possible. At the moment, I always think it's still possible, but as I said, I'm going straight to the 50s. So there will be a time where I'm not PBing anymore.
But it's always interesting going up an age group category because you suddenly go from one of the oldest in your little section to one of the youngest, and there's a good chance to get some
Yeah,
decent results then.
yeah, maybe. I've got one big goal to run a best of my running club. So for that, I have to run a 17:29, I think, at
Okay.
the 5K. So I'm the best in my age group at the running club. That would
Yeah.
be something.
Yeah. Well, I think you said you were 17:32, so it's
Yeah,
only, only
3 seconds.
3 seconds. It's well, I say it's nothing, but when you're doing that time, it is it can be
Yeah,
quite a lot
it's
for 3 seconds.
quite a lot. Yeah.
Yeah. And you've mentioned the age group timings a few times. What you've I think you've had some age group representation, haven't you? How's that worked out for you?
What do you mean by representation?
As in have you taken part in some wider age group competitions or something like that, or am I making this up from somewhere?
No, no, it's always you've got the results, the overall result at those races, and there's also the results for the age group, so you can see you're the first, second, third, or whatever.
Yeah,
So when you get older and you're not high on the podium, you're always looking for something.
yeah,
So that's the thing for the old guys.
and that's quite competitive within itself.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff.
yeah.
And so when you're looking at that, is those your main goals in running now, to just try and maybe get those, shave those extra few seconds off, or is there anything else you're looking at to try and do?
There's still the thing with the longer distances. It's still back in my mind. So when we talked about that at the beginning of the podcast, was like, yeah, I think I'm still into it and trying to get a better overall runner, not
Yeah,
only in the 5K. Um, so summer is always my racing season, and it's always my running season because it feels much easier for me. I don't know why. It's like I can run much lower heart rates in summer without so much more training than in winter. So it always feels easier, and so I'm doing more longer runs, more longer competitions this summer. um, I raced a 10K 2 weeks ago. I'm going for a half marathon now on Friday. There will be another half marathon in a month, and then a 28K. So I'm going for the longer distances. I try
yeah,
to do that, try to avoid the pressure. Um, and then at the end of the summer season, I will do the usual 5Ks. I think with the base of the long runs, and I will do more speed work, and maybe I'm shaving off 3 extra seconds from my 5K time. Yeah, that's always in my head, going for the longer runs, and it is getting better. I think it's something you have to work on consistently. Always put a long run in your week, uh, not only one in a month. So, and trying to fuel, or I have to fuel myself very well during those times, that I'm not getting so exhausted. So that's a thing at the moment, and I'm trying to learn in that area. And at the moment, it works very well. So I'm looking forward to this. I'm really looking forward to the half marathon next week, this week on Friday. Um, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
when you're pushing for those long runs, are you still looking to be really competitive and get really good times, or have you managed to get your mindset perhaps to a situation where you're like, I want to do a long run and I don't care if it's going to take me 5 hours, 10 hours, because my goal is just to click the long run.
Yeah, I think I will always be kind of the competitive guy, and maybe that's sometimes a problem, because I'm trying to do more and more. And it was like, for example, last week it was like I had lots of time, so whenever I've got the time, I'm like, okay, I can go for a run. And the week started very well, and I was at, I don't know, on Wednesday I was on, I already ran 40K or something like that, and was like, okay, I can. That's never not thinking about running thing. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, on Wednesday I can go for another run, and then on Thursday I can do 20K, and then Friday, okay, maybe I can put a run into my lunch break at work, and then on the weekend I can do another long run, and then I've got a 100K week. so so that's the never not thinking about running thing. And I always have to stop myself. And that's one of the things I learned the hard way, but also the last 1 or 2 years, to look for yourself, not over try to overachieve. I will always be the competitive guy. I always try to reach for new PBs, and when I run next week, I think I'm going for a PB because I think I ran in a competition only 1 or 2 times a half marathon, so I'm going for it. And I think that will be not that big of a problem. Yeah, we'll see how it goes then in the end. But
Yeah. Oh,
you see the problems I've got.
yeah. No, good luck with it. I find it fascinating because I kind of have, not I think to the same extent, but some of the same thoughts about some of those distances. For me, 5 or 10K, and I'm not doing the sort of times you do. I just go out and just do it. Really, I don't think too much about it at
Yeah.
all. Um, for the If I'm doing a half marathon or a marathon, I feel like I have to run it. I haven't got it into my head that a lot of people will just go, "Oh, I'm just going to do it, and I'm going to take 6 hours over it, and I'm going to have fun." And we had one guy in the UK who did. I mean, he did do 401 marathons in as many days, but
Mhm.
by halfway through, he was stopping and having a full lunch halfway through his marathon, and then carrying on and doing the rest and finishing it in 8 hours. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm quite jealous. That sounds like huge fun. And what
Yeah.
I was going to say was actually when I've now been lucky enough to manage to do a couple of ultra marathons, including one at 100K, and because
Cool.
I just physically wasn't good enough and not fit enough to run that, I actually did find that I was doing. Oh, I can walk a bit, I can amble for a bit. Oh, here's another place to have a sandwich, and I suddenly was really enjoying it, and the competitive Craig had sort of disappeared,
Yeah.
and it bizarrely actually helped some of my shorter distance times as well. So yeah, just throw that out there. Really.
That will never happen to me in going for some food. Yeah.
Oh, food in the middle of a race,
No
gents. If you've
way.
never
No
done that,
way.
that's the
No
way to live.
way.
Do you take gels and stuff like that then on
Oh,
your?
I hate gels. I hate gels.
I do too, actually.
They're so worse. I tried lots of things the last month, gels and gummy bears and different things to drink, and gels are the most terrible things. They are so sticky to your fingers and
Yeah.
they taste terrible, and you've got a strange taste in your mouth, and you have to drink a lot after it, and then you've got that package of the gel. What to do with that on your training run? You cannot put it in your shorts, and you cannot throw it to the woods, so it's terrible. So I'm not into gels. No.
No. Is that then a case when you're going on those longer runs of making sure you've got enough water and basics like that then to keep you going?
Yeah, yeah. I try to do it mostly with drinking. I've got some what's I don't know the exact translation. Müsli riegel, something to eat. Those with grain and maybe chocolate or something like that, and eat
Oh, okay.
something like
Like
that.
a
And yeah,
muesli bar,
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
yeah. There's something like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that must be my GCSE German coming in there. It's a long time ago, with just a random guess. Um,
Yeah, but it was good.
and you also, I think you also mentioned that some of the stuff you did when you went to I can't remember if you said it was at school or university college was around uh, not necessarily running, but sort of physical activity and so on. Does that help you? Does that help you shape your running?
Not really. To make it short, no, not really. It was I did a master in sports psychology, so
Okay.
there was, of course, a physical part of the studies, but not that big as other people there. So I did lots of different activities, but it was not like going for something serious there. So,
Yeah. Did you go into that field in the end, or did you end up doing
no,
something completely
no,
different?
no, no.
Oh, sorry, different. That's my line of questioning on sports psychology.
I really find it fascinating. It's I'm always reading. I'm still reading studies in sports psychology from time to time because it's a really fascinating field, um, and it helps you to understand yourself, of course, and also understand professional sports. And yeah, it gives you another um, facet of sports so you can better understand it. So I really like that. And yeah, sadly, I don't know if sadly, but I ended up in another field, not in sports psychology.
Yeah, I've been looking at some of the things being said around the Euros at the moment, and the
Yeah.
psychology of going into extra time or penalty shootouts, which finally in England we seem to have, touch wood, got a little bit better at, rather than it's maybe just because we've not played Germany. But yeah, it's really interesting, that extra 1% and that extra little something which can make the difference between winning and losing, I suppose, at the very top level.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
for us as runners, can, I don't know, maybe shave those 3 seconds off, or whatever difference
Yeah.
they might make.
Yeah, I actually did study on sports referees in ice hockey, if they are influenced by information they've got before, if they um, judge the players in a different way. And there were some studies at gymnastics before, and my studies was based on them. So in the end, it was like, yeah, every referee is biased by the information they've got before. So, and that's a thing that will also happen in soccer, but nobody wants to talk about that.
So you're looking at, if you've got a player who has a reputation for
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
diving, the referee might not give a penalty,
yeah,
or who has a
yeah, exactly.
reputation for fouls, he's more likely to get booked.
Yeah.
Ah, I guess unless you have a reputation for false starts in the 100 meters, you're pretty safe in running.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
how that how that sport how our sport how our sport goes on with that. And just going back to where we started, I
Yeah.
suppose, and talking about the Substack newsletter. What's your aim for that? Is it just a place where you like to, I don't know, write your thoughts, and whether somebody comes back or not, it doesn't really matter because you're just doing that? Or are you
Yeah.
hoping to grow it and develop it? And
I don't know at the moment. In the beginning, it was like I always liked writing things on the net, on the internet, writing my thoughts, trying to get in contact with other people, maybe having the same problems or are interested in the same field as I am. I always liked the internet community. There are good and bad sides, but I've got very good um, experience with the people on the internet and what I've got from that. I think one goal was to give mental health a showcase. You can see that there are people out there with small problems, bigger problems in the mental health area. I think it's still underrepresented, how can you say, underrepresented in the media. For
yeah,
example, I think last week or so, the basketball coach of Germany, with whom they won the world championship, he wrote a book and he wrote about depression and all these things. And there's nearly no media coverage on that. So I find it quite funny.
yeah, yeah,
And I try to show people that everyone got problems, small problems, big problems, give them my point of view. And I'm really looking forward to hear other people's thoughts on that. And yeah, I think that's the main thing. And I really like reading my thoughts maybe a year later.
yeah.
Um, yeah.
And have you had quite a lot of feedback? What kind of feedback have you had? Has it been? I mean, you suggested there that it's been largely positive.
Yeah, it's largely positive. I really like the Substack community. I think, because it's still in the beginning, especially here in Europe,
Yeah.
especially in Germany, um, it's kind of small, but it's more. The people are more concerned on what they are talking about and the things they say there. So it's not like Twitter or X, uh, where lots of lots of people trolling around. So that's really nice, and I like the spirit of the community there. And the feedback was like that lots of people got these problems too. I've got emails with concerned people asking if I'm fine. There were people telling me their own story, like they're now at a rehab, in their rehab, and going for trying to go back to life, their normal life, and that's more rewarding than anything if you got the the thoughts of other people and they're getting to know their story. That's so great.
And do you feel that what you're trying to offer is a place to connect and to tell people this is this is normal. We all have these kind of feelings.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's normal. If you look around, if you know maybe 10 people around you, I'm sure there are 2 or 3 people got their own problems, mental health problems, maybe some episodes of depression, or I don't know what. And I think it's time to talk about that more, not only with friends and family, but also at work and wherever you are going. I think it's still a problem to speak openly about that things, and that's not a weakness. It could be a strength, because those people are always working on yourself. They're not sitting around and doing nothing because they're not willing to. They always willing to go for something. They're trying to make themselves better, feel better, and the weak people are maybe sometimes more the people still sitting on their chairs and doing nothing and just judging other people. So
Yeah, yeah. And when it comes to runners, to athletes, do you think as a community we are better or worse than talking about things like mental health issues?
that's a difficult question. I think there are a lot of problems in that area, especially at professional sports.
Yeah,
If you look around, I think there are lots of women with problems in that field. For example, in the eating disorder field, and I think that's also a problem for some men. And so I think there are lots of things to improve, but the more people open themselves and tell other people about their problems, it will be kind of an avalanche, and more people talk about that. So hopefully that will get better and better.
and I'm really intrigued by it. If somebody was to come to you, so I've read the blog, I've read your story, I've read about how running has helped you, but also become I suppose a double-edged sword. Um,
Yeah.
and they were to say to you, well, I've had a burnout, I've had a depressive episode. Um, would you advise me to go running or not? What would your answer be?
Always depends. Always depends. It's a very difficult question to answer, and I'm not the person to give that advice. I think um, always depends.
But for you, running has ultimately, despite the pressure that it sometimes brings, has ultimately been something which has been a positive in your life.
Absolutely, I will always go running.
When's the next run? When are you going out again?
I've got to 3 days. So I think on Thursday I will be running again. It's the preparation run for Friday for my half marathon. So very easy week this week.
Yeah, the joys of tapering. That's something that actually I really struggle with tapering. I mean, you're talking about getting obsessed with whether you're ready for a race or whether you're ready for anything. Tapering for me, I find it so hard. And I'm like, I haven't run in 2 days. I'm never going to be able to run again.
Yeah, it feels like that, especially at the day of the competition. It feels like, oh my God, what did I do the last weeks? Nothing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Where's the event taking place at the weekend?
It's somewhere here in the area in a small village, but it's very known for the race. So lots
Yeah.
of people from whole area of around 100 to 150K will come here, and it's a great gathering, very big run. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Oh, that's a massive field. Yeah, that's a huge
Yeah,
number of
yeah,
people.
it's a huge number. It's I don't know how that developed. It's very it's a run with a big history, and I think it's because it was for a long time measured, officially measured, because there are lots of runs like, okay, this is 5K run, but in the end it's a 4.8K run. It's you're not getting into the lists of the national, I don't know,
Yeah.
and I think they still got a 3K course, which is measured, a 5K, no, not a 5K, a 3K, a 10K, and a half marathon. So lots of people coming there, and it's a good atmosphere, lots of people, and it's cool competition.
And that's a road race, is it?
Yeah, it's a road race. Yeah,
So you can get your speedy trainers on and really go for it.
yeah, exactly.
Oh well, Jens, I wish you all the best luck with
Thank you,
the race at the weekend,
thank
and
you,
just generally with your running, with your mental health, and I really look forward to keeping reading the Substack newsletter, because I really enjoy it actually, and
thanks a lot,
it's
thanks,
fascinating, and I look forward to seeing you run one of those long races very very soon.
thanks, means the word.
No problem at all. Well, Jens, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for everybody out there listening to the Running Tales podcast today. As I said at the start, we are part of the Everyday Athlete Podcast Network. And if you're ever listening to us live on Tuesdays in the UK at 5 o'clock, you can find us on the Run, Try, Bike Network on Twitter, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. And then you can find our podcast out there on the Everyday Athlete network with loads of other brilliant podcasters who could probably get through that sentence a lot better than I just did there. So thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening to Jens's story, and I'll see you again in a couple more weeks. Thank you.